Welcome back to the Weekly Huddle YouTube channel. We're back with some more NFL draft content. Now that the draft is going to be tomorrow, as this video is going to be out on Wednesday, I have to come back with my video I was planning on doing, and I said I would do in the last video, the 2021 NFL Draft Sleeper Team Defense. So it's 11 players, one for each position that I believe are sleepers in this class, and I will go and break down the entire defensive side. We're going to be doing a 4-3 defense here with a slot corner and a regular corner, as well as two safeties, a strong middle and weak side linebacker, two edge rushers, a nose tackle, and a D tackle. Let's get right into it with our first player, Tommy Togiai, D tackle out of Ohio State. Now he's going to be our nose tackle here in this defensive front. He is a very top-heavy player, like extremely stacked in his upper body. His lower body is a little thinner, but it also allows him to get a little more athleticism out of his frame. You'll see him making plays down the field, like 20-30 yards down the field when the play like run breaks off deep. He's rarely ever moved out of his gap. He usually takes two players to move him a little to the side, and that just erases a whole extra blocker for other players. Really frees up area for his linebackers, which is why a lot of them are in this draft and are going to be draftable, because they were giving up a lot of space because of his ability to really take up blocks. He doesn't really have any like benefits or upside in like the pass rush as of right now. He might be able to be coached up to use his hands a little better, but like he's not the greatest athlete in pass rushing, and he's probably more of an early down two gap kind of guy at nose tackle. But if you draft him, you know what you're getting, and he's going to be one of the higher end nose tackles in the league, just based off of his upper body strength alone. Sliding over to our 3 tech now, our D tackle Osa Adigazuwa out of UCLA. That franchise guy likes to compare him a lot to Aaron Donald, which I can see. He's a very thick lower body and lower center of gravity, and you can see that impacts how his run defense is, even though he's only 6'2", 285, I believe, 290. So he's a smaller D tackle, but he is so thick and powerful in his lower half that he's able to stand up blockers and really affect the run defense, and he has really good get off. In the pass rush, he just needs to develop some more pass rushing moves. Like he has that run defending upside right away coming out of college, with some room to grow at pass rushing. This D tackle class is kind of weak, and so you might have heard of Adigazuwa, most because a lot of other people are talking about him as they're like their sleeper D tackle in this class. But I'm very high on him. I'm more high on him than I am on like Davion Nixon or things like that, who plays a similar style of game, but fairly different players. I like Osa Adigazuwa's game far better than those other guys. He's more of a second-round pick for me, to be honest with you. Next up on our strong side end, we're going to have Peyton Turner, edge out of Houston. He's an interesting case because his first year as a starter, he was playing at like a lighter weight for like a 3/4 outside linebacker kind of guy. And then his second year, he put on a bunch of weight to play like a D tackle, up nearing 300 pounds. This past season, his senior season, he played at 6'5", 270. So he's kind of that Calais Campbell body type mold, where he's like this taller guy with a bigger body, extremely athletic for his size. You'll see like a lot of his highlights are him running down wide receiver screens at the line of scrimmage, or just running around offensive tackles. So he was able to just win a lot with just his pure athleticism at the level which he played at. So in the NFL, he's going to have to learn to be coached up in pass rushing moves, as well as keeping his pad level lower, because he tended to stand up a little bit. But I think those things are fixable, especially by good staffs who can really develop these players. And if you grab him, you're probably going to be getting a starter a year or two down the line who is kind of that like physical freak, not like insanely athletically physical or freaky for his size, but like better than you would have expected from seeing him, especially at 270 on the edge. And he has that capability of losing weight and gaining weight to bump around and play like maybe a 3 tech or a 5 tech and 3-4, or even drop out to a 3-4 outside linebacker or anything like that. On our weak side edge, we have Jordan Smith, edge out of University of Alabama, UAB. He's another guy who's super raw, pass technique wise, and he really needs to get coached up for another year or two before he's able to start. But he's very scheme flexible, could be a 4-3 defensive end or a 3-4 outside rushing linebacker. He has an amazing first step, and if he puts a little weight on and sacrifices a little bit of that first step, he'll still have a pretty good first step in comparison to the rest of this class. So he can stand to add weight. He's technically sound in the run defense, where he closes off the gap when he's on the backside of the play. But he's a little too aggressive on the option plays, which I don't know if that's coaching or if that's just him trying to get the sack or whatever, but he frequently runs past the running back and just tackles the quarterback on those. But yeah, he has a freakish first step. He has some moves with like a spin move, like a swipe, a club, a swim. He has shown that he can do some of that stuff, especially in the Rice game. But I think he needs to use it more consistently, and he needs to win with his hands more consistently instead of using his athleticism to really blow by guys or mask his rawness. But his first step does allow for a lot of opportunity for inside moves and things like that. So he is a project, but if you can capitalize on his athleticism, you might be getting something there. At strong side linebacker, the man I wrote a player capsule about is my first ever article on Macro Sports, Pete Werner. He played linebacker at Ohio State, and I'm kind of fascinated with him. A lot of people are sleeping on him because he's lacks such a top end athleticism. But as a strong side linebacker who is great at engaging blocks, disengaging, and attacking the run when on that play side, and as well as really understanding zone coverages and being able to, even though he's not as great of an athlete, he can still mirror and follow with some of the more athletic tight ends. Like he shut down Pat Freiermuth in the game against Penn State. Like his Penn State game, his Clemson game, those games where he had to be on top of his game per se to really be good in run defense and pass defense, he was really, really good. He just lacks athleticism, and he takes poor run angles. Like say if like a run breaks long on the outside, he's not a good enough athlete to compensate for bad run angles, which he constantly takes. So he needs to learn to take better run angles to compensate for his lack of athleticism. And he is a good blitzer, so he's a guy who can play the strong side and cover in the pass. So I feel like he eliminates the need to go to nickel as much as you would need to in the modern day NFL, especially if you have guys like who we're going to talk about a weak side linebacker. We could run 3 linebackers the entire game if you had Werner and our weak side linebacker we'll get to in a little bit. At middle linebacker or Mike, we'll have Cameron McGrone, linebacker out of Michigan. Now, he missed not missed time, but because he played through it, but he wasn't his best self in 2020 because he had a broken hand or a broken wrist. There was something broken in his arm that he played through, which is outstanding, but it really impacted his ability to really provide big, these big plays that you're looking for in your Mike linebacker, but he has the speed to get from sideline to sideline. It's adequate. He's very aggressive, downhill attacker in the run game. He needs to grow in his pass defense. Like, he needs to understand where guys are in his zone. He can leave his zone a little bit if he really needs to, if there's no one around him. And ball playmaking abilities needs to grow, which may have been stunted by his broken arm. But as a guy who can come in and be an alpha on your defense, be that captain, and just really step in, upgrade your run defense, and take hold of that locker room, Cameron McGrone is a guy you can grab in like the 5th round. That can really make an impact for your team. I'm surprised I saw him going so late in the draft in these like mocks and on these boards. And at our weak side linebacker, we have Garrett Wallow, a very late addition to this sleeper defense. I just reviewed his tape today, rather late than never. He's a converted safety from TCU, playing weak side linebacker. Hovers around 230, but when he was at TCU, he played strong side linebacker, and he has the capability maybe putting on a little extra weight and playing that in the NFL, but I think weak side linebacker fits him the best. Since he played safety early on in his career, his understanding of coverages and where he needs to be is above average for linebackers. He knows where he has to be and carries guys through his zone, and it just works well with his zone. He's not an amazing athlete, but he can compete with athletic tight ends and man coverage and things like that. I think man coverage, which he didn't run a lot while playing for TCU, could be his strength opposed to zone coverage, but he is still decent in zone coverage. Don't get that wrong. Why I think he works best as a weak side linebacker than a strong side is because all the run defense I watched on his tape was when he was able to play and slow play from the back and scrape along the line of scrimmage. He's able to identify these run lanes and really attack and make plays behind line of scrimmage frequently. But if he's the one getting run at and having to take on blockers and shed them, unlike Pete Werner, who can do that and really step up and make plays there, he needs to be kept clean and really come from the back end, and then he'll be able to make his plays and be more aggressive. If he's asked to step in, make contact with an offensive lineman, shred him, and then make the play, that's just not his game. So I think he fits best as a weak side linebacker, and another guy who's a 3-down guy. In this defense we have lined up here, if we were to go nickel and I had to add another corner, you could take out like McGrone and put these two guys as your your nickel-based linebackers. And real quick, just because I know he's a late addition, I wanted to give a shout-out to the guy who previously held the spot, Baron Browning, linebacker at Ohio State, but I thought there was a little too much Ohio State on here. Plus, I liked Garrett Wade's game a lot when I watched him today. Browning, great blitzer, amazing athlete at the linebacker position. Really pigeonholed as like a weak linebacker in the NFL, so he's going to be dropping on people's boards. And it's just relatively unknown. A lot of the Ohio State linebackers are unknown this year, so I feel like I should shout him out for having just missed this spot. At outside corner, we have Paulson Adibi, the corner out of Stanford, a guy who suffered from the opt-out thing that a lot of players are this year. He played well enough to be considered a first-round pick in 2018. He was converted over from a wide receiver, kind of like Caleb Farley, kind of like Richard Sherman, if we want to scout the helmet a little bit. If you can look back at his 2018 film, it was pretty good. In his 2019 film, the second half of it was pretty decent, but the first half of it was not very good, and he was struggling with injuries, and he opted out of this past 2020 season. So you're going to get a guy who could potentially be a first-round corner, who I think is a very good corner, identifying coverages, elite in zone coverage, but man coverage, he's not the best. He showed out at his pro day, showed some of his athleticism to click and close and things like that with, I think, a 4.39 40-yard dash, somewhere around there. So he's a good athlete, really good at identifying zone coverages and just elite in zone coverage, but he's going to be pigeonholed as like an outside zone cover corner who hasn't played consistently well in like 2 years. So that's why he makes it on this list. Our slot corner is one of the most fun players you'll ever watch if you cover the draft. Avery Williams out of Boise State. The guy is a firecracker on special teams. Let's just get his special teams out of the way first. He had a block punt touchdown, a punt return touchdown, a kick return touchdown, onside kick recovery touchdown. He has some of the best special teams film I've ever seen. And that's not even getting into his actual defensive film, which he didn't play a lot. He was more of like that role player, the nickel player on the Boise State defense. He's a smaller guy, but he has that firecracker athleticism where what makes him a good returner, that he can play fast and loose and has a little bit of that good change of direction that he can play in the slot, but he's going to be very tight cast as a slot guy. If you can grab Avery Williams in like the 6th round, you're getting a potential slot starter day one, but an immediate contributor and just all-around energy guy on your special teams unit. So this guy is a guy I would definitely search out and try to get, especially in those later rounds when you're not looking for, your starting outside corners and things like that, and trying to fill out your special teams because he is extremely valuable there. At strong safety, we have Telenoa Hightower, one of my favorite names to say in this draft. He's like one of those guys who's like a nickel linebacker, really good thumper at the safety level, can come down and really smack some guys. He struggled in the playmaking area at safety and doesn't really have that sideline to sideline speed that you want in like a free safety. So that's why he's more typecast as a strong safety. But his production this past year in 2020 was much better than his 2019 film. It was a big jump, and you're hoping that he can make another big jump in his playmaking with his ball skills and things like that once he hits the pros. So I think you're getting a solid base run defender at safety who can also cover, just won't be making all those gigantic plays for you. He just has the room to grow into a very solid safety NFL level, who is also adept at run defending, which you really need on the 3rd level of defense. And our final guy is Paris Ford at free safety out of Pitt. He has that range that Hufanga doesn't have. He's a little more raw when it comes to the zone coverage concepts, and again, has a lack of playmaking on his resume. But I think he has all the athleticism and traits you want in a good free safety, while also being a very aggressive player when attacking the ball. He may not come up with a lot of interceptions, but he puts himself in positions to do that. So I think that aggressiveness plus his athleticism can make a very interesting project that someone could really pull out, like the steal of the safety class out of him, because of all his traits he exhibits that you can really mold into the kind of player you need at your safety position. So yeah, that's our all defense sleeper team for the NFL draft this upcoming Thursday. I have one more draft video I'm going to post out on the day of the draft. It's going to be my final predictive mock draft. It's going to be I'm going to label it as a podcast episode. It's going to be really short. I'm just going to run through some of my picks that I think are going to happen, but these are all the players I personally would like to draft. If I was like, say, some of the later teams in the draft who don't have those high picks to focus on needs or would want to grab developmental guys, tell me if you think I missed someone here or if I should replace someone else with someone that you believe is more of a sleeper. These are just the guys I think aren't being recognized enough by draft analysts and things like that. Make sure to go check me out on Macro Sports. I'm writing articles over there now. And like and subscribe, follow us on all our social media, all that good stuff. And I will see you later.